It was the dead of night. The entire room flickered in the trembling light of a single candle. 100-year-old man was taking his final breaths, and standing right beside him, holding a knife, was a tall man with a long white beard. Silent, still, just waiting. And the moment he did, that man stepped forward, raised his knife, and cut the body wide open. He pulled the internal organs out with his bare hands. Then, he sat down and started writing. 30 pages with blood-stained hands in reverse. That man's name was Leonardo da Vinci. A man who from the moment he was born was labeled the devil's child. He grew up without education, without love, without a place in this world. Society threw him into the darkness and forgot about him.
And yet,
Newton, Einstein, Tesla, everything they accomplished combined still falls short of what this one man did alone. He left behind 13,000 pages of secret notebooks. Written backwards? Impossible to read without holding them up to a mirror. Hidden inside those pages are the secrets of the human body, the mathematical formula behind God's design, and blueprints for weapons so devastating they could have wiped out entire civilizations. History's most cursed genius. But here's the real question. Was he actually a hero or a villain? What did he discover? And why did he hide all of it from the world? We're going to uncover every single secret in today's video. Stay with us. The year is 1580. Leonardo has been dead for 60 years. An Italian artist named Pompeo Leone buys a bunch of random old papers on the cheap, looking for a little artistic inspiration. But the moment he opens those pages, his breath catches, and his eyes go wide. Every single page is filled with mirrored handwriting, written from right to left, readable only when held up to a mirror. Inside are anatomical drawings so incredibly detailed, it looks as if someone sliced through the human body layer by layer. There are designs for terrifying weapons capable of tearing empires apart. Technology that was 400 years ahead of its time, like helicopters, gliders, mechanical robots, and machine guns. Things completely unimaginable back then. There are bizarre prophecies and mathematical formulas written in an unknown language. But the most chilling part? The pages are stained with the dried, dark smudges of bloody fingerprints, as if someone had started writing immediately after touching rotting flesh. Leone quickly organized these 2,500 pages into two massive volumes, the 1,011-page Codex Atlanticus, which compiled all of Leonardo's scientific and technical work, and the Codex Arundel, which gathered his anatomical, artistic, and philosophical writings. However, Leone completely mixed up the dates and topics, permanently destroying Leonardo's original order. After Leone's death, his family split those two volumes into separate pieces and sold them off. Da Vinci's life's work ended up scattered across Italy, Spain, England, and France. 300 years pass, bringing us to the 1800s. Finally, Renaissance scholars begin looking deep into the mysterious depths of these books, and their eyes lock onto some incredibly strange patterns. The first pattern? The anatomical drawings contain notes that directly contradict the Church and the Bible. There are sketches of a newborn fetus inside the womb, diagrams of a beating heart, and the mapping of blood circulation throughout the body. The second pattern? In his blueprints for weapons, the designs were deliberately drawn with flaws. The gears on his tanks were placed backward, and the firing mechanism on his crossbows was intentionally incorrect, almost as if he was trying to send a secret message. The third pattern? Hundreds of his drawings, scripts, and masterpieces were left completely unfinished. Not just one or two, but hundreds. And on top of that, those dried bloodstains on the pages? Did he meet an untimely, violent death? So scholars came up with a theory. Leonardo da Vinci was a mystical genius who deliberately encrypted his revolutionary knowledge and mysterious discoveries in mirror writing. Why? Because if he hadn't, the Church would have executed him. You see, in 16th century Italy, the Church held absolute power. If you said or wrote anything that went against the Bible, you faced heresy charges, torture, and death. In the year 1600, Giordano Bruno was burned at the stake simply for stating that the sun, not the earth, is the center of the solar system. In 1633, Galileo was silenced and put under house arrest. And as for Leonardo, he had already been branded a heretic back in 1513. Leonardo knew that if his discoveries about the human body, his proofs of the Earth revolving around the sun, and his highly accurate sketches of human embryos were ever published, the church would burn him alive too. That is exactly why he wrote in code. In the 1900s, this theory became so popular that it inspired several world-famous books like Decoding Da Vinci, Leonardo's Secret Code, and The Hidden Messages. But all of these books were only telling half the story.
The full truth was far more fascinating. Leonardo was a hidden genius, the kind of mind that arrives not once in a century, but once in 10,000 years. Yet on his deathbed, Leonardo looked back at his own life and called it a massive failure. So what were the dark secrets hidden in his notebooks, and what was the real truth behind these bizarre patterns?
In 1638, a book was published that finally blew the lid off Leonardo's hidden secrets. It was written by a man who spent his entire life unearthing truths buried deep within art history, Ludwig Heidenreich, a German art historian. Through his work, the world caught its very first glimpse of the real Leonardo da Vinci. April 15, 1452, in the village of Vinci, Italy, an illegitimate child is born to an upper-middle-class father, Ser Piero, and a peasant mother, Caterina. Because the child was illegitimate, he was given no family name, only Leonardo, with a surname gifted by his village, da Vinci, meaning from Vinci. In that era, illegitimate children were cast aside as the devil's child. And Leonardo carried an additional dark stigma. He was left-handed, which the church viewed as a definitive sign of the devil. He had no right to an education, no standing in society, and no claim to any home, land, or inheritance. His father abandoned him, and his mother left to start a life with someone else. Leonardo's childhood became a punishment for a crime he never committed. But a childhood like that doesn't break a kid. It breeds an entirely new perspective. He thought, if the world won't look at me, I will look at myself, and I will understand the world through my own eyes. The boy who was never taught how to write letters learned how to truly see. Observation became his language, and patterns became his alphabet. He would sketch bizarre notes, individual fibers, and the microstructures of grass. People laughed at him, but his eyes weren't looking at the world, they were looking into it, capturing the finest details and hidden systems. He was decoding the secret language of nature hidden within its textures. This wasn't just the birth of art, it was the birth of an absolute obsession with pattern recognition. For decades, this man would analyze a single brushstroke. His obsession was absolute clarity. Now, let's get back to Leonardo and his obsession with pattern recognition. One day, a 12-year-old Leonardo was staring intensely at a tree when a sudden realization hit his brain like a bomb. He noticed that the total thickness of a tree's trunk is always exactly equal to the combined thickness of all its branches. And the thickness of any single branch is equal to the combined thickness of all the smaller twigs branching out from it. Today, this observation is known in science as Leonardo's rule. It is a pure mathematical principle, the conservation of network flow. What flows through a tree? Sap. So the flow entering the system is always equal to the flow exiting the system. This exact same principle dictates how our arteries distribute blood, how cities manage traffic flow, and even how the internet distributes data. When a 13-year-old Leonardo looked at the mountains of Vinci, he didn't just see mounds of dirt. He noticed how contrast fades with distance. He saw colors shifting toward blues and grays, and edges blurring into the atmosphere. He was understanding optical scattering, and this very observation gave birth to a revolutionary new artistic theory called atmospheric perspective. This principle would go on to become a fundamental rule for all future landscape painting, and it was heavily used in masterpieces like the Mona Lisa. Where ordinary people saw beauty in a galloping horse or a leaping cat, Leonardo saw force distribution, tendon extension, and rotational symmetry. He was seeing physics and biology, while the rest of the world just saw a pretty picture. And all of this was happening long before Galileo and Newton, at a time when science didn't even have the vocabulary to describe his observations. But Leonardo's life was about to take a massive turn. At age 14, he was taken in as an apprentice by Andrea del Verrocchio, the greatest artist in Florence. But this was no ordinary art school. Verrocchio made Leonardo mop the floors, wash clothes, cook meals, and only then would he get the chance to mix colors, grind minerals, and finally hold a paintbrush. Verrocchio quickly noticed something unusual about the boy. Leonardo would frequently take on a project, leave it half done, and move on to something else. Half-finished sketches, half-made models, half-completed paintings. Leonardo struggled with a flaw that many of us share, a problem he would battle for the rest of his life, and one that would make him die viewing himself as a massive failure. Take a look at this painting, The Baptism of Christ. It is a piece so incredible that after it was finished, Leonardo's master, Verrocchio, quit painting forever. On the left side, there is an angel holding a robe. Leonardo painted that single angel, and it possessed such psychological depth, dimension, and raw emotion that his master declared, "Shame on me that a mere boy has outdone me. I shall never touch colors again." The truth was undeniable. Leo had injected science into art, bringing depth and emotion to a flat canvas. It was proof that it wasn't just hard work, but a scientific perspective that brought Leo success. And that right there is the psycho mindset. Science isn't just a school subject, it's a lens through which you view the world. Florence, 1476. A single night changes Leonardo's life forever, lighting a fire under the madness brewing inside him. Under the cover of darkness, someone anonymously drops a letter into a special complaint box near the Florence Cathedral. The letter accused Leonardo da Vinci of a forbidden relationship with a 17-year-old male model. This was a catastrophic accusation. The punishment back then was brutal torture, years of imprisonment, and sometimes being burned alive. But because the case involved a boy from a highly prominent, powerful family, Leonardo's luck pulled him back from the edge of total ruin, giving him a second lease on life. Even so, his reputation was shattered. The innocent, forward-thinking young man was now looked upon with disgust and suspicion in every alleyway of Florence. Think about it. Even today, when being gay is legal, look at how society still judges people. Imagine living in an era where it was considered the ultimate, unforgivable crime. The pain was so deep that Leonardo's internal identity shattered. But, as the saying goes, nothing is more dangerous than a man rebuilding his broken self. It was directly after this trauma that Da Vinci's obsessive madness and hunger for power were truly born. For 4 long years, Leonardo locked himself away inside his home and gave birth to a new lifelong companion, his notebooks. His world was no longer populated by people, but by his thoughts, his questions, and his sketches. He locked his entire existence away inside those papers, and page by page, a brand new world began to evolve. A world that was running 400 years ahead of its time. And now, you are about to witness the real-time evolution of a cursed genius's mind through the journey of his own writings. The book opens, and Da Vinci is reborn. Nothing can be loved or hated unless it is first understood. The greatest deception men suffer from is from their own opinions. I isolate myself so that the failure of the world cannot reach me. Who am I? Where does the soul reside? Where do emotions like pain, shame, and fear live? Tell me if anything can be more admirable than the reasoning of the soul. Uncovering the truth was no longer just a hobby for Leonardo. It was his sole reason for existence. This wasn't just an obsession. It was a total transformation. His curiosity became his entire identity. After years of reading texts, Leonardo finally took matters into his own hands in 1489. He began illegally smuggling corpses, dissecting them, cracking open skulls, and creating hyper-accurate anatomical drawings. Look closely at these sketches. They look almost identical to a modern MRI scan, drawn 500 years before the MRI machine was ever invented. Da Vinci literally scooped out the brain to draw its 4 ventricles, the exact spot where philosophers of his time believed the soul, emotions, and imagination lived. Today, we know that isn't true. Those ventricles simply produce cerebral spinal fluid to cushion the brain inside the skull. But his drawings were phenomenally accurate. He wrote, "Tell me if anything can be more admirable than the mind of a man." Well, perhaps a person's face defines their identity, but for Leonardo, beauty wasn't a mysterious secret. It was a mathematical formula. He wrote, "The head is ruled by geometry. An attractive face is divided into 3 perfectly equal parts from top to bottom, from the forehead to the brow, from the brow to the base of the nose, and from the base of the nose to the chin." The face is perfectly symmetrical from the center of the eyes, and the ears sit perfectly in the middle. The human body is a system of ratios, a living, breathing equation. While an average person dismisses beauty as a mere feeling, Leonardo was busy finding the patterns within it. Finding patterns in reality, in this world, and across the universe. That is the psycho mindset we are developing together through our curiosity. But why do we see things the way we do? Take a look at these two pieces of artwork. What difference do you see? This one is Leonardo's work. Notice how the character displays a breathtaking photo-like realism. And this is the work of another legendary artist, Sandro Botticelli, defined by harsh outlines and crisp, clear borders. Leonardo had unlocked the true nature of light.
Light never creates harsh, solid edges. Instead, it forms a perfectly smooth gradient from bright light to dark shadow, based on its distance from the source. This is the exact concept that would later become the inverse square law of light. Armed with this scientific understanding, Leonardo invented an entirely new realistic painting technique called sfumato, an illusion where sharp edges dissolve into the air. Sculpting the character's form out of light and shadow rather than harsh outlines. Once again, that is the psycho mindset at work, seeing art through the lens of science. By the year 1480, Leonardo begins to feel a suffocating sense of stagnation in Florence, and this painting is released, the beautiful Ginevra da Vinci. There is no smile, no showmanship, just deep, profound thought. For the first time in Western art, a painting captured the raw weight of human thought. But then, completely out of nowhere, blueprints for apocalyptic weapons of mass destruction start flooding his notebooks. Why did the fire of chaos ignite inside Leonardo? Historians have long struggled with the two completely conflicting faces of Leonardo da Vinci. On one hand, he was a peace-loving vegetarian who loved animals so deeply that he would buy caged birds at the market just to set them free. On the other hand, he was a man designing war machines built to obliterate humanity. It remains a massive historical puzzle. Was the man hidden inside Leonardo a hero, or was he a villain? How will Leonardo resolve this brutal inner conflict between good and evil? How did he manage to conquer 20 different fields to simultaneously become history's greatest genius, scientist, inventor, and artist? His notebooks had the power to push human civilization 200 years into the future. So why did he hide them from the world? And why, on his deathbed, did Leonardo look back at his life and call it his greatest failure? We will unmask the ultimate truth very soon in the next episode. So psychos, brace yourselves for the next calling and sapere vedere. Learn how to see.